Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're regular here, you know I review many photographic, audio and video related products. Well, today we're taking a second look of a Canon EOS R7. Now, I've looked at this camera quite a few times actually, so when I say second look, it's a more direct look at the camera. I've compared it with other cameras, but I really like the handling of the EOS R7. Now, I've owned it for about 8 months. I bought it from not long after it came out, to be honest. I really love the camera. I love the handling, I love the features that it has. And I'm just going to go through in this video why I still love this camera, why I still use it. Now, I was asked to take some photographs of a new hair salon opening. It's opened up in one of our properties, so I went down there one evening just to take the photographs of their launch night. And this was a great camera to use. I used it in conjunction with the Godox V1 flash. A great little flash gun. Well, it's not little actually, it's quite a big flash gun. A really handy little flash gun. I used it with that. Now, the reason why I use flash, because I was taking a lot of photographs into light, so you'll see in a minute. I'll show you a few quick examples, and I found that really useful to use flash, but this camera works great without flash as well. Now, one of the reasons I love this camera for is its 32 megapixel sensor. And again, I'm going to show you in just a minute the benefits of having a larger sensor than a 24 megapixel sensor. Now, my other cameras I have are 24 megapixel sensor cameras, such as the Sony a6600, which is actually getting the close-up shot here. The Panasonic G8.6, that's got a 25 megapixel sensor. My Canon R50, that's got a 24 megapixel sensor. So I'm well versed with cameras with smaller sensors, and they're completely fine. Video, no problem whatsoever. I'm getting great 4K video on my a6600, albeit that it's 8-bit video, and the Canon R7 can shoot 10-bit 422 video internally. Ironically, I use the Canon R7 in 8-bit mode. I tend to use this as my close-up camera. I use it in conjunction with my Sony a6600. It depends on what I'm doing. Obviously, I'm using the a6600 today because I've got the Canon R7 in my hand here. But when I do use the R7, I tend to shoot it in 8-bit mode, and I tend to use the RF 50mm lens on the camera. Yeah, great ergonomics on the Canon R7. That's another reason why I love using the camera. Lovely ergonomics, that is great. And the on-off switch, they've moved from over on this side, which is on the RP, over to this side, which is great. So you can do it with one hand. And also, which is great, the video setting is on the same switch as the photo setting. A few reviewers have said they find that annoying actually, because when they turn it on, they automatically switch it straight over to video. I, to be fair, have done that a few times, but it's not a big deal, just switch it back to photo. So I don't find it a big deal, although I've only done it a couple of times. I've got used to the fact it's on the one switch, flip it over, and there you go. So I do really enjoy the ergonomics. Everything seems to be where you would want it to be, and I think that is great. Now, the other thing that I really like is the 2 card slots. Now, I don't tend to worry about redundancy when I'm taking photographs for myself. If they don't come out, they don't come out. I've not had any SD cards corrupt on me using my a6600 or using my Canon R50 or even using the Panasonic G8.6 Enemy cameras. I find as long as you're using good quality SD cards, you don't really have a problem. But what I did find really handy actually the other night when I was doing these photographs at this salon for their launch, I was able to give the client, well, I say client, it was a friend, I weren't being paid for it, but I was able to give them the SD card that had the JPEG images on, and I shot medium resolution JPEG images on one card. I was able to give them a card straight away without having to come back to the office, download them, create, another files for them. And that was really handy because I then had on the card 1 the raw files on here. So I was able to keep the raw files on one SD card and give the client straight away the JPEG images on the other card. But also they were there as a backup as well. So I had the best of both worlds, and I think that is great with the R7. The other thing that I really do enjoy with the R7, which again I wasn't sure and I didn't think it would be such a big deal, but it is for me now, it's actually really useful, is the fact when you take the lens off, the sensor is protected by the shutter, so it comes down and protects the sensor from any dust. So I was able to change lenses, you know, without any issue. Although, to be fair, on that particular night, I didn't change any lenses. I just stuck with the 16mm lens I had fitted to the camera, and I found that was a great all-rounder, because that was about 25mm. Now, a little bit wide as a portrait lens, but when you're working, you know, fast, it is great because it's just point and shoot. And because of a 32 megapixel sensor, I was able to crop them, and I'm going to show you that in just a moment. Now, I will leave some sample images up on my website. It'll be on my Flickr site, actually, so I'll leave a link in the description of this video where you can find sample images of the Canon R7 and some images taken of the this event. I might actually leave a link to the entire event photographs, because the lens sharpness and the sensor sharpness on this camera is brilliant. And what I really enjoyed working fast with this camera in conjunction, when I did use a flash, in conjunction with the Godox V1, I was able to get some great images and work fast. And what was nice about this camera, I didn't have to keep looking at the back of the screen to see if the image was sharp. I was able to rely on its autofocus, and the autofocus is phenomenal. Obviously I was using eye detect and face detect vast majority of the evening, but I found something that was, I wasn't sure when I set it up this way that I would find it that useful, but I actually think it's fantastic, and I would highly recommend anyone who's looking at buying the Canon R7, already owns the R7, maybe, depending on the sort of photography you do, this sort of setup might work for you. Maybe it won't, but it certainly works for me. And what I've done, now you see I've got this set to single point AF. Well, I say you'll see, you probably won't be able to see, but I've got that set to single point AF. I've got the little square box in the centre of the screen there. Now, I've set it up so I can push in this focus button, which is in the middle of this wheel. I've set up for exposure compensation. But I've set that up so I can just push that button in and change the focus point. I use that set to spot focus, and now we're back on the spot there. Whether you can see that, I don't know, but I have got that set on spot focus. Now, that is great. So when I take a photograph, it'll just focus on that spot. And that is great for when you're doing group shots. I was able to take a quick group shot knowing that the sensor will be in focus. And I thought that was fine for group shots, because I didn't want to just pick out one particular face. Now, what I've then done, the AF on button, I've set for eye detect, human eye detect. So when I push that button in, not that it will select anything now, because obviously there's no face there, but I don't know if it'll pick up my face, but push that in and it will pick up the face and focus on an individual face or an individual eye. So I've got spot focus for general photography or a group shot. I then was very quickly able to push that button if I want to pick up a specific eye or a specific face. I thought that was great, so quick and easy to do that. Very similar to back button focusing. But I've also got this star button at the top here. That one set up for animal eye detect. Not that there was any animals at this event, but I can very quickly switch between human eye detect on that button and then switch to animal eye detect using that top button. And I found that ergonomically is great for the way I shoot, and it was great for that particular evening. The other features that I really did like, I loved the articulating screen. I mean, most cameras have an articulating screen these days, but that was great because I was quite regularly doing some shots like of the food all being laid out, and I was able to do that, set it up like that, no problem at all. I could adjust the screen as to, you know, where I wanted the screen. I was able to do, you know, low down shots. And there was a few shots where I was able to, you know, just bring it up and do that. So the 3-inch articulating screen I found very useful, absolutely fantastic. Now the battery was great. The battery lasted the whole evening, about 4 hours I was there taking photographs, pretty much non-stop, and the one battery lasted, you know, the entire evening. I thought that was pretty decent. You know, it's the LPE6N, I think they called it, something like that. It will take the older LPE6 batteries as well as the new ones. But if you want to do power delivery, use this camera for power delivery, because you can do. When I'm using it in the studio here for video, I use a USB-C port off a block for power delivery, so I don't have to worry about the battery running out, and I think that is really, really handy. But you do have to use the newer EPL6 batteries for that feature to work. So that's fine, that's not a problem at all. But yeah, the handling and the grips, 2 SD card slots was, as I say, really, really handy. And the fact that it's got 32 megapixels was also fantastic, because I was able to crop, and I'm going to quickly show you in just a moment. I did actually find really nice the exposure compensation wheel. Now this is, you know, some people like it, some people don't, but I actually really like this wheel on the back here. I've really got used to it. I've got no problems with using that to adjust your exposure compensation, and then obviously pushing the button in to change where my focus point is. So I love both of those. The viewfinder's bright and sharp, great with that. Again, I was using it indoors, outdoors, and I found that really great. Although a lot of the time I was simply using the screen on the back, and that's another reason why I love mirrorless cameras. I would struggle to go back to using a DSLR that hasn't got, you know, really, really good live view. And the dual pixel autofocus worked a treat for me. Let's have a quick look at some of these, you know, photographs that I took using flash. Now, I'm not a big fan of flash whatsoever, but you'll see why I actually use the flash, and it made a lot of sense in the environment that I was working in. So if we just go, I was taking some test shots in here. So let's just go along here, and you can see, where can we look? On that 16mm lens. Now 16mm on an APS-C body, as I said earlier, is about 25mm. And I think that was a great compromise between ultra-wide and you know, a standard lens, portrait lens. I wasn't really taking portraits here, and I needed a lens that I could just get great images at a snap, really, because I didn't have time to muck around. So you see, without flash, very, very flat. Obviously I could brighten that up, but with a flash, really bright, and just really pumps. It's really punchy. You can see how punchy the images are using the flash, and it doesn't look flash. Because I used the filter on the front of the V1, I used this little domed filter that softened the light, basically, completely softened it. So it wasn't too, didn't look too artificial. And the lovely thing is, this salon's got daylight balanced fluorescent tubes, so it worked out really well. But some nice shots there. You see there again with the flash works really well. But this 32 megapixel sensor is great for cropping. And I'm going to pick up one specific image. Let's go to one specific image. But right now, if we look at this image, so that was the original image, and we compare that with the cropped image. Now, if you look at this, you can see why I used the Canon R7. I took that one with me and not my other cameras. I made a decision mentally that I might need to crop these images because it is a wide angle lens. So I decided to take the R7 because of the higher megapixel count. It gave me more room for cropping. So you look at this image here, they're both exactly the same images, but I was able to crop that. So, you know, they both work actually. Both images are fine. They work really well. But I was able to crop that, and you can see the sharpness is still perfect on the cropped image as it is on the wide image. So I was able to give the customer a variety of images from the same image, basically, you know. And I think that was something that otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do, you know, and I feel that was, you know, really, really great. And again, using flash here. Now, that doesn't, to me, really look like I've used flash. All it's done is created punch in their faces. That would have been so flat had I not lit it because I'm shooting into light, I'm shooting into a window. And the reason why I chose to shoot into the window was because the balloons surrounding the window just made a pretty backdrop, where if I turned them around, the other backdrops were not very good, or I'd have had mirrors in the background. That would have been a complete and utter nightmare with trying to avoid getting me in the mirrors. So works out great. The Canon R7 does take the Canon RF-S lenses. I've got the 18-150 lens. That's a nice kit lens for going out traveling. It's nice and sharp. Not a great portrait lens because the aperture doesn't go very wide. Likewise, the 18-45 kit lens, not the best lens on the market, obviously, but it's fine if you just want to get some nice pictures. But if you want to be able to do this sort of thing, where you do want to crop in tighter, you do want to be using better quality lenses. Hence, again, a reason why, again, I used a prime lens, such as a 16mm, as opposed to a zoom lens. I wanted to make sure I got that, you know, really nice image quality. But again, I'll leave a link to these photographs on my website or on my Flickr site, so you can take a better look at them there. Yeah, you can adapt the old EFS lenses, and I've got one here actually. Yeah, the Canon EF 40mm lens. I thought it was an EFS lens, but it isn't. It's an EF lens. So you can adapt old lenses like this EF 40mm lens, and these are really, really cheap to buy. And you can get the Canon EF to RF adapter. In some kits, the camera bodies are sold with the adapter, but you can get the EF to RF adapter. The autofocus still works great, and they're really, really great value for money, particularly if you buy the EFS lenses. Because the R7 is a crop sensor body, then you don't need the full frame lenses to go on it. You can use the crop sensor lenses. I would say the R7 is a pro camera, no doubt about that. It's got in-body image stabilization in the body of a camera as well. So if you are using lenses, again, such as the 16mm and the 50mm that don't have image stabilization, then I don't think the 50mm has, then you've got it in the body of a camera. So a great feature, and I think that's something that, you know, is brilliant. Video quality is fantastic on the R7. I normally use it all the time in the studio here as my main camera. It has got no video record limit, so you can just keep on going until either the battery runs flat or the SD card fills up. But I tend to use power delivery, so I tend to use a USB block to power the camera, so I don't have issues with the power running out. And I'm usually running 128 gig SD cards in here. I think that's what I've got in there. Yeah, I've got a 128 gig Sony card in there at the moment. So you can get a lot of video and photographs on those cards, so no problem there. You know, yeah, all in all, a great handling, a great featured and a great spec camera. So I just wanted to cover that in this video. So I leave links to sample photographs on me Flickr page, and you know, take a look at them there. So there we go. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. Hit the like button if you like the content of my videos. Would really, really appreciate that. And stay tuned for more videos related to video photography, podcasting, and more about the Canon R7, you know, as I use it more and more. Cheers for now. Bye.